What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave Week in Review. We're going to go back through the week and take a look at your comments and some of the topics that we talked about. So if you missed a day, we'll go through it and you should at least get a good idea of the bigger things that happened throughout the week. I'm excited to look at what you guys had to say to any of the stuff we talked about, including Pokemon possibly going to Unreal Engine, which is kind of cool. And then, of course, the possible Dreamcast Classic. Look, they're definitely doing controllers, but could we see a Dreamcast Classic? Let's get started today. On Monday, we talked about the Bandai event that took place last Friday and the lack of information that came out due to an apparent non-disclosure agreement that is in place. Capcom also mentioned that they hear the fans when it comes to a want for Mega Man Legends. Cheese Puff says, Battle Network is a lot bigger than Legends. Battle Network 4 is the second best-selling Mega Man game. Now, I've mentioned Battle Network in the past as well. I do think that's something they could go back to. However, there are a lot of Battle Network games. They did that that series. They did that a lot of service there. There were a ton of those games, and actually the one you're mentioning there, Battle Network 4, was actually one that was not reviewed well, and critics really beat that one down pretty good. Apparently, that actually hurt the series, and really never recovered. I think Mega Man Legends is a good one because it's been absent for so long. The fans clearly want it, right? And they were like, I don't know how far through, but they were definitely working on Mega Man Legends 3. They could have even been halfway done that game. And honestly, since it was showing up on the 3DS, it probably would have sold well, maybe even better than Battle Network 4. It's hard to say because that is a good landing spot for it, something like the 3DS. And hey, the Switch would do really well with Mega Man Legends 3. I think that would actually sell easily over 1 million units depending on when it shows up in the Switch's lifetime, especially if it's in like its third year or something, maybe even 2 or 3 million. It's hard to say, but there is a definite want, and I think they see that. The fact that they're willing to admit that means that there might be something on the table internally at Capcom. I'm sure they've been working on stuff with the Mega Man X. I'm sure they've been playing around with ideas with Legends. It's clear they're playing around with Mega Man. If Mega Man 11 is slated for sometime next year, we assume late next year. It's been in development for a little while now, so I would like to see Legends. I know there are people who are fans of Battle Network, maybe even Mega Man X ahead of that, but I think it is time for Legends to make that revival, make that return, because there is an audience, and it's very clear people will buy that game. Tuesday, we went over a report that the next Zelda game was starting development. This was translated in the new book released in Japan, The Masterworks, where Aonuma himself spoke about the development beginning for the Zelda team. Jaden Raymond says, I think the next main Zelda will be about 3 years, 2019 to 2020, but they'll port the Twilight Princess or Wind Waker HD, have an in-between lower budget game like a top-down experience, and also spin-offs like Hyrule Warriors 2. So yeah, I really do think, like you're thinking here, there are multiple Zelda games in the works. I think there's one other one. So I think there is a definite big budget, massive vision that they have in store for the Switch. That's the one that'll show up probably towards the end of the Switch's lifespan. That might even bridge the gap, similar to how we saw Breath of the Wild was on the Wii U and the Switch. That could be one that's on the Switch towards the end of its lifespan, and it also appears on the next system, much like we've seen with actually a lot of Zelda games. I mean, the Twilight Princess was on the GameCube and the Wii, so I could easily see something like this happening down the road, where they have their massive game that they want to put out. There could be, like you're saying, I was thinking a top-down game that would show up in a few years, that would be kind of that midway point. They might do some other stuff, but really, at this point, with the Virtual Console coming up, we all know there's some kind of really on-demand or on-service gaming network coming up with the Virtual Console. They could bring back just the older Zelda games, space them out, and then show up with some kind of top-down Zelda game, maybe a sequel or something new from a Link Between Worlds, something like that. I think that would still fit in with the Switch. I do have some concern over fans feeling, if we see it and it's very similar to Link Between Worlds, will people pay a full $60 for it? I will. I don't know how many people would, though. That's the big question. Can they show that there's enough value in a game like that to maybe mainstream fans that might look at it and say, well, this doesn't look like a big 3D style game like Breath of the Wild, and they want me to pay the same amount? I think it would still sell well enough because Zelda is on it. I would buy it for $60. If it was a bigger, better Link Between Worlds, absolutely, I'm in for $60. But I do think you're onto something. They might even do more spin-offs. I do think we'll get one big Zelda game, one in between, and then some Virtual Console stuff, though, from my perspective. The Shooter says, I can't say I agree with how much you discredit the Wii U, Spawn. See, I think this is a fair statement here, because I do discredit the Wii U quite a bit. I do think there are good games on it. I don't think the system is good at all. I think Nintendo wanted the Switch back when the Wii U came out. I don't think they wanted the Wii U, but there was no Tegra around at the time that they could jam into it. I mean, when you first saw the Wii U, when they first showed it, they just showed the tab. We didn't even know there was a base unit with it until later. I remember at retail when I was working at a video game store at the time, they displayed it at E3, and then the next day people were coming in talking about it, and they were like, oh, you see that tablet that Nintendo's putting out? And we had to explain to so many people, well, there's a base unit with it too. So right away, the marketing was poor. Like, if you look at how it was with the Wii U, and then you look at the Switch, massive, massive differences. Seriously, it is insane how different it is, how much more clear-cut it is with the Switch. And really, if you want any more proof that the Wii U just hurt the Switch, really hurt Nintendo at that point, even hurt the Switch, that's why so many third-party developers were tentative about showing up for the Switch, because they weren't sure if Nintendo was just out there with another zany idea like the Wii U, where they get no third-party sales, whereas here's the Switch selling indie games left and right like it's nothing. People are talking about Doom selling a bunch and Skyrim selling well, and it looks like third-party sales are at least back for the time being, but the Wii U did not help that image at all, and that's why you see so many companies concerned about showing up on the Switch. Now they're saying, oh, we should have been there in the first place, but can you really blame them with what the Wii U did? It sold 13 million units. The Switch is about to pass that in its first 10 months. That should tell you all you need to know right there. Also, since really Nintendo had been reporting numbers, if you want to get into that, the Wii U did manage to lose Nintendo quite a bit of money. Over the years, they would actually really report operating losses, and then they would even scale back projections constantly. Like, seriously, they would just pull down projections all the time with the Wii U because it just wasn't selling. It's tough to sell to an install base 13 million. Sure, the attach rate was great for first-party games. Don't get me wrong. Some of those games, for how many of those systems were out there, I mean, Mario Kart sold near 8 million units on a 13 million unit install base. That is absolutely insane, but that's more of an outlier, and that is a first-party game. Sure, other ones like Mario Wii U sold well. That was like 5 million, but then it starts to drop down to like 1 million and 500,000, and third-party support was... They didn't sell well at all. So no, I don't think the Wii U was good for Nintendo. I think it was a mistake. I think it's very clear that they corrected that with the Switch, and that's why it's very exciting now, because, hey, Nintendo's doing well, and Sony's doing well, and Microsoft's trying, and it's exciting now for video games more so than ever, because now that third leg with Nintendo is back and actually performing well. Wednesday, we went over a deal between Sega and Retrobit to create licensed products that included accessories for Sega Saturn and Sega Dreamcast. This gave fans of the retro systems hope that a possible classic system could be in the works for either system, similar to what Nintendo is doing with the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo. Cheshire Hat 2 says, I've never heard you say Dreamcast so many times. Love it. Sega is finally making a good decision after the nonsensical choice to not fund another Jet Set or Jet Grand Radio that was brought to them by passionate developers. And here I thought Sonic Mania had taught them an important lesson. Still though, can't wait to buy a set for all three consoles. Any luck, they'll work on PC as well. VMU Bluetooth is a dream come true. You know, that's the one accessory I didn't talk about. I should have. Having a VMU completely remade, that would be awesome. I mean, think about all the stuff they could do with the VMU now. They could include a colored screen. It could be backlit or even front lit. There's a lot of stuff that they could play around with, like a colored screen with that. They could also do different things, maybe with the wireless connection for it between other VMUs. I think they could do some really neat stuff with the Dreamcast in general. The more I thought about it, the more excited I got for possibilities of good wireless Genesis controllers, good wireless Saturn controllers, fight sticks. I mean, the list goes on. I really hope this partnership between Retrobit and Sega really turns into something big, and I hope we do eventually get to the finish line. And that finish line, to me, is something like a Dreamcast Classic, right? Something we've seen it with Nintendo doing with their stuff, but with the Dreamcast. A Saturn Classic is the dream, because some of those Saturn games are obscenely expensive, like really expensive. And if you could come out with like a Sega Saturn Classic that had some of the really good games, and then you also had stuff like Panzer Dragoon Saga on there and a few others, I think that would be completely worth it. Even if they sold it for $100 for what some of those games retail by themselves, and maybe it has an HDMI out and everything, yeah, sign me up. $100, no sweat. So I really hope that's what we get to. Something that does have collaboration where they make a system, new controllers that are quality, even if they're more expensive. That's the thing. I hope these companies start figuring this out. We're willing to pay more money for a controller that doesn't feel like it's a hollow piece of plastic. Make something quality and we'll pay a little bit of extra money, especially if it'll last us through a few years. Thursday, we saw Media Create sales numbers that showed the Switch was closing in on the Wii U lifetime sales in Japan. As of now, the Switch is roughly 400,000 units away from the Wii U's lifetime sales, and based on rumors circulating about a ton of stock in Japan this past week, it appears the Switch may pass that mark in its first 10 months. PUBG also released two reviews that seemed to cause controversy, as some outlets such as Polygon gave it a perfect score. Stefan Andreessen says, "To imagine that PUBG is better than Witcher 3 and as good as Zelda Breath of the Wild is laughable." See, this is where review scores get me. Review scores are so bad if you really look at them in like a broad terms, because then you're taking numbers from different genres and you're comparing them. The reason I think PUBG got a perfect score from places like Polygon, even Game Informer, they gave it a 95. They might as well give it a perfect score. They just took some off, so it wasn't perfect. But it's more so the popularity and within its genre, the battle royale shooting online play genre. There's news that it just crossed 30 million sold. It's absolutely insane. And to them, oh, this is the best game, which that's even debatable with Fortnite. To them, they're like, oh, this is the best game in the battle royale genre, despite it being super buggy and having two maps now, though, good for them. But because of that, they look at it and they say, they're not saying this is the best RPG ever made, right? They're not saying this is the best action adventure style game like Zelda. They're just saying this is the best battle royale game that's out right now. Again, even though I think Fortnite, based on what a lot of people have said, is better. But when you take a review score and you say, okay, based on this review score, it's better than Witcher 3. It's not better than Witcher 3. Come on. Or you put it next to Zelda and you say, oh, it's as good as that. No. Witcher 3 and Zelda are much better games than PUBG. I think that's pretty obvious. Sure, you might have more fun with PUBG because you enjoy shooters, but if you really step back, look at it from a game perspective, its popularity seems to trump all right now, and that's why it was in the Game of the Year contendership at all with the VGAs, because enough people voted in and because they had to put it in, or I guess people would, riot in the streets or go crazy. I'm not sure what would happen. I don't think anything would have happened, to be honest, but at least it's actually out now, right? It's no longer an early access, so it can be treated as a final game, and I guess people can float in midair in the game and they can say, well, it's not early access anymore, I guess this game's just buggy. Finally, on Friday, we talked about a big job listing that was posted by Creatures Inc. that could give us some insight into the Pokemon game currently in development on the Switch. The listing seems to indicate programming experience in Unreal Engine 4, along with a picture of a Pikachu being modeled using Unreal Engine 4 and blueprints. Mason says, hopefully it does. Using an existing engine will surely speed up development time than making their own engine. This is actually a really good point that I see a lot of people really talk too much about. See, a lot of people are concerned that Pokemon may be rushed. And that's fair. You could make that argument, but there's also a good chance that they've been working on this for a while. In fact, say back when we heard that the Pokemon models were also had accompanied in the game files, there were HD versions of these Pokemon up to 1080p, I think is what people were saying. High definition versions. At that time, they could have at least been modeling, getting these Pokemon ready. And then they wanted to move to, say, the Unreal Engine 4. So now they have Creatures Inc. remodeling them, or at least moving them over to Unreal Engine 4, and they're hiring out to expedite the process. The more people they have working, the faster that part will get done. That might be kind of tedious, right? So there's a chance that this game has actually been under development for a little while now. I mean, again, if you look at the Wii U, there wasn't much happening in the end of its lifespan. I think personally, a lot of development got moved over to the Switch at the time, and they were just thinking more about the future than they were at the present. And this Pokemon game could have been a part of that development cycle. And in this case, there's a chance we go back and, oh, they've been working on Pokemon for 2 years now. Well, if it releases at the end of 2018, maybe they have had a full 3-year dev cycle and Pokemon comes out and it is revolutionary. Who knows? I mean, if they do move to Unreal Engine 4, I really, like many, want to see what this looks like. How much more can they morph Unreal Engine 4? A system really that has developed things like Gears of War. How can we use it to bring something like Pocket Monsters to life? Something we have seen over and over again since the 90s. can they really change it and revolutionize it this much, even going as far as to take a new engine that has been really making the rounds in Japan now with Japanese developers and Unreal Engine, and morphing it and changing the Pokemon genre, really the Pokemon games completely, something we've never seen. I really hope so, because I've been one of the people saying that Pokemon has become very stagnant, and I would love to see them just completely change everything with that. I really hope so, and I really hope it does come out in 2018, because I do think Nintendo wants either Pokemon or Metroid out, and I think Pokemon is probably going to end up being the most ready. But hey, we'll see. January Direct will come around, and we'll see footage of one of the two. If we see footage of Metroid, not Pokemon, I think Metroid's coming first. If we see footage of Pokemon and not Metroid, I think Pokemon's coming first. And that's it for Newswave Week in Review, guys. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, really helps out. Thank you so much for stopping by a few days before Saturday, or really Saturday, a few days before Christmas, when I'm sure there's a lot of stuff you have to do, or maybe you are waiting feverishly for Christmas morning to get here, because maybe you're getting a Switch, or maybe you're getting some games. I've seen people talk about new computer parts, and a new computer in general. It's an exciting time, obviously, especially if you're getting some stuff and you're giving stuff like me. It's a little less exciting, but still, nonetheless, thanks guys for stopping by. Leave some comments down below about all the stuff that we talked about today. And guys, I will see you later on tonight. We got Spawncast, and we got a special guest, Austin John Plays. So stop by tonight. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna talk about some stuff, including Pokemon, because he's gonna have to fill us in on Pokemon. He's a Pokemon expert, so he's gonna teach me and I guess Max about this. Thanks guys for watching. I'll see you later on tonight.